The dust storm rolled across the Arizona territory like God's own fury, and through it came a woman stumbling on bleeding feet, her wrists bound so tight behind her that purple bruises bloomed like desert flowers across her skin. Owen Fairchild saw her collapse near his campfire, just as the sun bled red across the horizon. And in that moment, everything he thought he knew about his solitary life shattered like glass. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up with instinct, his coffee cup forgotten in the dirt as he ran toward the crumpled figure. She wore what had once been a fine traveling dress, now torn and stained beyond recognition, and her dark hair hung in tangled ropes down her back. When he rolled her gently onto her side, her eyes fluttered open and they were the color of sage after rain, wide with terror and exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracked and dry. "Please don't send me back." Owen's jaw tightened as he took in the rope burns, the bruises on her face, the raw desperation in her gaze. Without a word, he pulled his knife from his belt. She flinched, but he spoke low and steady. "I am going to cut those ropes, nothing more. You are safe now." The blade sliced through the hemp easily, and as the bonds fell away, she gasped with relief and pain as blood rushed back into her hands. Owen caught her before she could collapse again, supporting her weight as he guided her to his campfire. "Water," he said, reaching for his canteen. She drank greedily, desperately, water spilling down her chin. He let her drink her fill before gently pulling it away. "Slow now. You will make yourself sick." She nodded, her breath coming in shaking gasps. In the firelight, he could see she was young, perhaps 23 or 24, with delicate features that spoke of a gentler life than the one that had led her to this moment. "What is your name?" he asked. "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Norton." "Owen Fairchild." He studied her face, then the direction from which she had come. "Who tied you up like that? Who are you running from?" Her eyes filled with tears. "My husband, though I never chose him as such. My uncle sold me to him 6 months ago to settle a gambling debt. Thaddeus Morgan owns a ranch 30 miles east of Snowflake. He bought me like I was cattle, like I was property." Her voice broke. "I could not bear it any more. I ran when he rode out this morning, but his men caught me before sunset. They tied me up and left me at the ranch while they went to fetch him from town. I managed to slip away while they were drinking, but I knew they would come after me." Owen felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. He had seen evil in his 27 years, had witnessed the worst of what men could do to each other during the war and after. But something about this woman's story, about her bruised wrists and terrified eyes, struck him differently. "Nobody owns you while I am standing here," he said, and the words came out fierce and final. "I give you my word on that, Miss Norton." She stared at him as if he had spoken a language she had forgotten existed. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You do not know Thaddeus. He has money and influence and a dozen men who do whatever he says. He will kill you if you try to help me. Then he is welcome to try." Owen stood and began gathering his gear. "We cannot stay here. If his men are tracking you, they will see my fire. Can you ride?" "I think so." "Good. My horse can carry us both until we reach Snowflake. I have friends there who will help." As he saddled his bay gelding, Sarah struggled to her feet, swaying slightly. Owen caught her elbow, steadying her. Up close, even exhausted and terrified, she was beautiful in a way that made his breath catch. But more than that, there was something in her eyes, a strength that had survived despite everything, that called to something deep in his soul. They rode through the darkness, Sarah seated in front of him, his arms around her to hold the reins. She was tense at first, rigid with fear and distrust, but gradually she relaxed against him. Owen kept his attention on the trail and the sounds of the night, listening for any sign of pursuit. "Why are you helping me?" she asked after an hour of silence. You do not know me. This could bring you nothing but trouble. Because it is the right thing to do, he said simply. And because no woman should be treated the way you have been. No person should be bought and sold like livestock. Most men would not agree with you. Then most men are wrong. She was quiet for a moment. Are you married, Mr. Fairchild? No, madam. Never found the right woman, and the war took up most of my younger years. I have been drifting since it ended, doing ranch work here and there, saving money to buy my own place someday. He paused. What about your family? Anyone besides your uncle? My parents died of fever when I was 18. My uncle was my only living relative, or so I thought. He seemed kind at first, let me keep house for him in Tucson. Then the gambling debts piled up, and one day he told me I was going to marry Thaddeus Morgan. I tried to refuse, tried to run, but he held me there until Thaddeus came with the money. The preacher who married us was drunk, and I screamed through the whole ceremony, but it did not matter. The law saw it as legitimate. Owen's hands tightened on the reins. That is not a marriage. That is kidnapping and slavery. Try telling that to a judge. Thaddeus has half of them in his pocket anyway. They reached Snowflake just before dawn, the small town quiet in the blue-gray light. Owen knew the owner of the general store, a widow named Enid Cooper who had a spare room and a good heart. He knocked on the door at the back of the store, and after a few minutes, Enid appeared in her nightgown, her gray hair in a braid. Owen Fairchild, what in the world? She took in the sight of Sarah in his arms, bruised and exhausted. Lord have mercy. Bring her inside quickly. Within minutes, Sarah was settled in Enid's spare room, being tended to with warm water, clean clothes, and gentle hands. Owen waited in the kitchen, drinking coffee and explaining the situation in low tones. Enid's face grew darker as she listened. I have heard of Thaddeus Morgan. He has a reputation even this far west. Mean as a snake and twice as venomous. You have bought yourself serious trouble, Owen. I know. But I could not leave her. No, I suppose you could not. Enid studied him with sharp eyes. You have the look of a man who has found something worth fighting for. I just met her a few hours ago, Owen protested. Does not matter. I saw your face when you carried her in here. This is going to change your life, boy. You know that, do not you? Owen did not answer, but he knew she was right. Something had shifted in him the moment he had cut those ropes from Sarah's wrists, something fundamental and irreversible. Sarah slept for most of the day while Owen made quiet preparations. He spoke with the town marshal, a weathered man named Tom Hendricks, who listened with a troubled expression. The problem is the law, Marshal Hendricks explained. If she is legally married to Morgan, even against her will, I cannot just shelter her here. He has every right to come claim his wife. So women have no rights at all? Owen asked, his voice tight with anger. That is not what I am saying. I am telling you how it is, not how it should be. Your best bet is to get her somewhere safe and help her start over where Morgan cannot find her. California, maybe, or up to Colorado. But you need to move fast. Morgan is not the type to let this go. Owen spent the afternoon purchasing supplies and making arrangements. He sold his saddle and tack for extra cash, bought a second horse from the livery, and gathered enough provisions for a long journey. Every decision was made with the growing certainty that he was not just helping Sarah escape, he was binding his fate to hers. When Sarah woke that evening, she looked better. Her face was clean, her hair brushed and braided, and she wore a simple calico dress that Enid had provided, but her eyes were still haunted. How are you feeling? Owen asked. Better. Stronger. She twisted her hands together. Enid told me what the marshal said. I need to leave, do not I? We need to leave, Owen corrected. I am not sending you off alone. You cannot give up your whole life for me. You said you were saving to buy land to build something of your own. I cannot let you throw that away." Owen pulled a chair close to where she sat on the edge of the bed. "Miss Norton, Sarah, I want you to listen to me. Last night when I cut those ropes, I made you a promise. Nobody owns you while I am standing here. I meant it then, and I mean it now. I am not doing this out of charity or pity. I am doing it because it is right and because—" He hesitated, then plunged ahead. "Because I already care what happens to you. I know that probably sounds foolish given we just met, but it is the truth." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I do not understand you. Men have only ever hurt me or used me. Why are you different? Because you deserve better. Because everyone deserves to be free to make their own choices. And maybe because fate put me in the right place at the right time to do something that actually matters." She reached out hesitantly and took his hand. Her fingers were small and soft in his calloused palm. "Thank you," she whispered. "I do not know how I will ever repay you. You do not need to repay me. You just need to be safe and free. That is payment enough." They left Snowflake before dawn the next morning, riding west toward the California border. Owen figured they had a day, maybe two, before Morgan organized a pursuit. The plan was to keep moving, avoid main roads, and put as much distance as possible between Sarah and her past. The Arizona Territory was harsh and unforgiving that late September of 1876, the sun beating down mercilessly during the day and the temperature plummeting at night. But riding beside Sarah, watching her sit straighter in the saddle with each mile they covered, Owen felt a sense of purpose he had not experienced since the war ended. On the third day, they made camp in a box canyon with good cover and a small spring. Sarah had grown more comfortable around him, talking more freely as they rode. "Tell me about yourself," she said as they sat by the fire that evening. "You know everything about me, but I know almost nothing about you." Owen poked at the fire with a stick. "Not much to tell. I grew up in Kansas on a small farm. My parents died young, my mother of consumption and my father of a broken heart a year later. I was 16, joined up when the war started, fought for the Union. Spent 4 years seeing things I wish I could forget. After it ended, I drifted west, working cattle drives and ranch jobs, saving what I could. I always wanted land of my own, a place to put down roots. Never seemed to work out, though. Do you have any other family? A sister in St. Louis, married to a banker. We write once or twice a year, but we are not close. She does not understand why I stayed west." He smiled slightly. "Truth is, I do not understand why she stayed east. This country gets in your blood, even with all its harshness, maybe because of it. Out here, you know where you stand. Things are simple, honest in their way." Sarah was quiet for a moment, staring into the flames. "I wish I had known men like you before all this happened. Maybe I would not have believed my uncle when he said Morgan was a good man. Maybe I would have fought harder." "You fought as hard as anyone could. You survived, Sarah. That takes more strength than most people ever need." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. Owen felt his heart kick against his ribs. In the firelight, she was so beautiful it hurt, but it was more than that. There was a connection forming between them, something deeper than gratitude or circumstance. "Owen," she said softly, "when we get to California, what then? Will you leave me there and go back to your own life?" The question hung in the air between them. Owen knew the answer in his bones, had known it for days now, but saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. "No," he said. "I do not think I could leave you even if I tried. This is my life now, helping you, being with you, if you will have me." Sarah's breath caught. "You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you are brave and strong and kind. I know being near you feels right in a way nothing else ever has. I know that when I think about the future, you are in it." He reached out and gently touched her cheek. I know I am falling in love with you, Sarah Norton, and I do not want to stop. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. I was so afraid to hope, she whispered. Afraid that once you got me somewhere safe, you would disappear. Afraid that this feeling in my chest when I look at you was just desperation or gratitude. And now I think maybe it is love. She leaned into his touch. I think maybe I am falling too. Owen drew her close, and she came willingly into his arms. For a long time they just held each other, feeling the truth of what was growing between them settle into something real and solid. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they pulled apart, Sarah was crying again, but her smile was radiant. I have never been kissed like that, she said. Like I mattered, like I was precious. You are precious, Owen said fiercely. And I will spend every day proving that to you if you let me. They sat together by the fire until it burned down to embers, talking about everything and nothing, learning each other's histories and hopes. Owen told her about his dreams of a ranch, of horses and open land, and a home he built with his own hands. Sarah spoke of simpler wishes, for a garden and a life where she could make her own choices, where she belonged to no one but herself. And maybe someday, if you wanted, you could belong to someone who deserves you, Owen said carefully. Someone you chose freely, who would cherish you the way you should be cherished. Sarah looked at him with such hope and longing it took his breath away. I would like that very much. When I am free, truly free, I think I would choose you, Owen Fairchild. Then we will make sure you get that freedom. But freedom was harder to secure than either of them anticipated. On the 5th day of their journey, just as they were crossing into the rougher country west of Flagstaff, they heard the sound of riders behind them. Owen's blood ran cold. We need to move. Now. They pushed the horses hard, but it was clear their pursuers were gaining ground. Owen spotted a narrow trail leading up into the rocks and made a split-second decision. Follow me. Stay close. They climbed into a maze of boulders and scrub pine, the horses scrambling over loose scree. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Owen found a defensible position, a natural fortress of rock with only one way in. Get down and stay down, he told Sarah, checking his rifle. Owen, there are too many of them. I heard at least 6 horses. I know, but they have to come at us one at a time through that gap. That gives us a chance. Sarah grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. Please do not die for me, please, I cannot bear it. He kissed her hard and quick. I do not intend to. We are going to get through this together, you hear me? Together. The first rider appeared at the gap, and Owen recognized Thaddeus Morgan immediately. He was a big man, thick through the shoulders, with a cruel face and cold eyes. Behind him, 5 other men spread out as much as the terrain allowed. Sarah, Morgan called out, his voice echoing off the rocks. Come out here right now. You have caused me enough trouble. Sarah pressed herself against the rock wall, shaking. Owen stepped forward, his rifle trained on Morgan. She is not going anywhere with you, Owen said, his voice carrying clear and strong. Turn around and ride away while you still can. Morgan laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You must be the fool who took my property. I am going to enjoy watching you die, and then I am going to teach my wife a lesson about running away. She is not your property, and she is not your wife, not in any way that matters. The law says different. Now, I will give you one chance to walk away from this. Leave her and go, and I will let you live. No. Morgan's expression darkened. Then you die. What followed was tense and terrifying. Morgan's men tried twice to rush the gap, and both times Owen's accurate rifle fire drove them back. He winged one man in the shoulder and put a bullet through another's hat, making his point clear without killing anyone. But he knew it was only a matter of time before they found another way around or simply waited them out. As the sun began to set, Sarah moved closer to Owen. "What are we going to do? We cannot stay here forever." "I know. When it gets dark, we are going to slip out the back way. There is a crack in the rocks behind us that I think we can get through on foot. We will have to leave the horses, but it is our best chance." "You think they will let us just walk away?" "I think in the dark we have a chance they do not. I have done this before, Sarah. Trust me." She nodded, her faith in him evident in her eyes. "I trust you." When full darkness fell, they made their move. The crack in the rocks was barely wide enough to squeeze through, and it led to a steep descent down the backside of the ridge. They moved in near silence, every scrape of boot on stone sounding impossibly loud to Owen's ears. They were halfway down when a shout went up behind them. Someone had discovered their escape. "Run," Owen said, grabbing Sarah's hand. They crashed through the darkness, branches whipping at their faces, rocks turning under their feet. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Owen's mind raced, calculating angles and distances. They needed help, needed somewhere defensible, needed luck. They got it in the form of a small ranch house tucked into a valley, lamplight glowing in the windows. Owen pounded on the door as Morgan's men crashed out of the trees behind them. The door opened to reveal an older man with a shotgun. He took in the scene, instantly a terrified woman, a desperate man, and armed pursuers. "Get inside," he barked, stepping back. They tumbled through the door just as bullets started flying. The rancher slammed the door and barred it, then moved to a window and fired both barrels of his shotgun into the air. "That is a warning," he bellowed. "Next shots are going to be aimed. You men turn around and get off my land." There was a moment of tense silence. Then Morgan's voice rang out. "This is not your business, old man. Send out my wife and the man who took her, and we will leave peacefully." "I do not see a wife. I see a woman who clearly does not want to be with you and a man trying to protect her. Now I said get off my land." More silence. Then the sound of horses retreating. The rancher, who introduced himself as Walter Stevens, listened to their story with a grave expression. His wife, Martha, fussed over Sarah, tending to her scratches and bringing her hot food. "Morgan is not going to give up," Walter said. "He has too much pride for that, but he is also smart enough not to attack my place. I have friends in Flagstaff, and he knows it. You two will be safe here tonight, but tomorrow you need to keep moving." "We are trying to get to California," Owen explained. "Somewhere Sarah can start over." Walter nodded slowly. "I have a better idea. You know anything about horses? Been working with them my whole life. There is a man I know in Colorado, runs a horse ranch in the mountains north of Denver. Good man, honest, and far enough away that Morgan is not likely to follow. He is always looking for people who know horses and are not afraid of hard work. I can write you a letter of introduction." Owen looked at Sarah. "What do you think?" "I think anywhere Morgan cannot find us sounds like paradise." They stayed with the Stevens family for 2 days, resting and gathering supplies for the long journey north. Martha took a particular liking to Sarah, seeing in the younger woman something of herself in earlier, harder times. "You have found yourself a good man in Owen," Martha told Sarah as they worked together in the kitchen. "I have seen the way he looks at you. That is the look of a man who would move mountains if you asked him to." Sarah smiled, a genuine expression of joy that had been rare in her life. "I know. Sometimes I cannot believe this is real, that someone like him exists, that he chose to help me. It is not just help anymore, though, is it? That is love growing between you two. I recognize it when I see it." "Yes," Sarah admitted softly. "It is love. I never thought I would feel this way, never thought I could trust anyone enough. But Owen is different. He makes me feel safe and valued and free." "Then hold on to that. Hold on to him. Life in this territory is hard enough without facing it alone. When they left, Walter provided them with 2 good horses, provisions, and detailed directions to the ranch in Colorado. He also wrote a letter to his friend, explaining the situation in careful terms that made clear Sarah needed sanctuary, and Owen was worthy of trust. Take the northern route, Walter advised. It is harder going but less traveled. Morgan will likely expect you to head west, not north. Give yourselves every advantage you can. They rode out at first light, and with every mile they put between themselves and Arizona, Sarah seemed to grow lighter, more herself. She laughed at Owen's jokes, pointed out beautiful vistas, and at night when they made camp, she would sit close to him, their shoulders touching, talking until the stars wheeled overhead. On their 10th day traveling, they crossed into Colorado territory. The landscape changed, becoming greener and more mountainous. The air was crisp and cool, and for the first time since Owen had found Sarah stumbling through that dust storm, he allowed himself to believe they might actually build a life together. They made love for the first time in a meadow high in the Rockies, surrounded by wildflowers and the sound of a nearby stream. It was tender and careful, with Owen acutely aware of Sarah's past traumas, moving only at her pace, following her lead. Afterwards, she cried in his arms, but they were tears of healing and release. "I never knew it could be like that," she whispered. "I never knew it could be beautiful." Owen held her close, his heart so full it ached. "It will always be beautiful with us. Always your choice, always because we want each other, never because of obligation or ownership." "I love you," Sarah said, the words coming easy and natural. "I love you so much, Owen Fairchild." "I love you too, Sarah Norton, more than I knew it was possible to love anyone." They found the ranch 3 days later, nestled in a valley with mountains rising on all sides. It was beautiful and remote, exactly what they needed. The owner, James Callahan, was a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He read Walter's letter carefully, then looked at Owen and Sarah with understanding. "Walter says you are good with horses and need a fresh start. Is that about the size of it?" "Yes, sir," Owen said. "We are both hard workers and we will not bring you any trouble if we can help it." "Everyone has a past," James said. "What matters is what you do going forward. I have a foreman's cabin sitting empty and I could use someone who knows their way around horses. The job is yours if you want it, along with room, board, and wages." "Fair enough." Owen felt Sarah's hand slip into his. "More than fair. We will not let you down." They settled into life on the ranch with surprising ease. Owen's expertise with horses quickly proved itself, and Sarah's organizational skills and hard work made her invaluable around the ranch house. James's wife had died 2 years prior, and the place had been falling into disarray. Sarah brought order and warmth back to it, and James was grateful. As autumn turned to winter, Owen and Sarah made the foreman's cabin into a home. They acquired furniture piece by piece, and Sarah started a small garden that she planned to expand come spring. In the evenings, they would sit by their own fire in their own home, and the miracle of it never quite wore off. "I have been thinking," Sarah said one night in December as snow fell outside their window, "about getting a divorce from Morgan, making everything legal and proper." Owen looked up from the piece of leather he was working. "That would mean going to court, maybe even going back to Arizona territory." "I know, but I want to be free of him in every way. I want to be able to marry you, really marry you, the way I should have had the chance to do the first time." Owen's throat tightened with emotion. "You want to marry me?" Sarah smiled. "Of course I do. I want to be your wife properly and legally. I want to take your name and build a life with you and maybe someday have children who will never know what it is like to be bought or sold or treated as less than human." Owen crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "Then we will do it. We will find a way to make it legal and proper, whatever it takes." They wrote to Walter Stevens, who connected them with a lawyer in Flagstaff who specialized in difficult cases. The process took months and required careful navigation of territory laws and the submission of testimony from Enid Cooper, Marshall Hendricks, and the Stevens family about the circumstances of Sarah's forced marriage. In the end, what swayed the judge was Sarah's own testimony, delivered in a Flagstaff courtroom in April of 1877 with Owen standing protectively beside her. She spoke clearly and calmly about being sold by her uncle, about the violence and coercion, about her escape and her right to choose her own life. The judge, an older man who had daughters of his own, ruled that the marriage had been obtained through coercion and was therefore invalid. Thaddeus Morgan, who had shown up to contest the proceedings, was ordered to stay away from Sarah on pain of arrest. As they left the courthouse, Sarah was shaking with relief and triumph. "It is over. I am finally free." Owen kissed her right there on the courthouse steps. "Now we can start our real life together." They were married a week later in a small church in Denver, with James Callahan standing as Owen's witness and Martha Stevens, who had traveled up from Arizona for the occasion, standing with Sarah. It was everything Sarah's first wedding had not been: joyful, voluntary, and full of love. Sarah wore a simple white dress that Martha had helped her make, and Owen wore his best suit. When the preacher asked if Sarah took Owen to be her lawfully wedded husband, her "I do" rang out clear and strong, a declaration of freedom and choice and love. Their wedding night in a Denver hotel was everything their first time had been and more, with the added joy of knowing they were truly, legally, married. They belonged to each other now, not as property but as partners, bound by love and commitment freely given. They returned to the ranch as husband and wife, and life took on a steady, satisfying rhythm. Owen's skills and work ethic earned him increasing responsibility, and James began talking about eventually selling Owen a piece of the ranch to start his own herd. Sarah thrived in the mountain air, her health and spirits blooming like her beloved garden. She made friends with the other ranch families in the area, became known for her kindness and her way with horses, and slowly, the shadows of her past faded. Their first child, a son, was born in the spring of 1878 on a morning when the valley was alive with birdsong and the smell of wildflowers. Owen was with Sarah through the whole labor, holding her hand and whispering encouragement, and when the baby finally arrived, he cried as hard as his newborn son. They named him Thomas Walter Fairchild, after Owen's father and the man who had sheltered them in their hour of need. "He is perfect," Sarah whispered, cradling the baby against her chest. "He is ours, and he is perfect, and he will grow up free." Owen kissed her forehead, overcome with emotion. "You are amazing. You are the strongest person I have ever known." "I am only strong because you made me feel safe enough to be strong. You saved me, Owen, in every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," Owen corrected gently. "You gave me a reason to stop drifting, a reason to build something real. You gave me a home, Sarah. You gave me everything." As Thomas grew, he was joined by a sister, Rebecca, born in 1880, and another son, Daniel, born in 1882. The foreman's cabin expanded with additions built by Owen's hands, growing into a proper house with enough room for their growing family. True to his word, James Callahan sold Owen a piece of the ranch in 1883, and the Fairchilds began building their own herd. It was hard work, but it was work they did together, as partners in every sense of the word. Sarah proved to have a remarkable head for numbers and planning, managing their accounts and making smart decisions about when to buy and sell. Owen's skill with horses meant their stock was always in demand, known throughout Colorado for quality and temperament. On a warm evening in June of 1885, Owen and Sarah sat on the porch of their house, watching their 3 children play in the yard. Thomas was 7 now, tall and serious like his father. Rebecca was 5, with her mother's eyes and a fearless spirit. Daniel was 3, cheerful and curious about everything. "You ever think about how different our lives could have been?" Sarah asked, leaning against Owen's shoulder. "If you had not found me that day." "Every day," Owen admitted. "And every day I thank God that I was in the right place at the right time. It was not luck, though, was it? It was you. Your goodness, your courage, your willingness to do the right thing even when it was hard. I think maybe it was both of us. You were brave enough to run, to believe you deserved better. I just happened to be the one who got to help you find it." Sarah turned to look at him, her face soft with love. "You did more than help me find it. You gave it to me. You gave me freedom and love and a family and a home. You gave me a life I thought was impossible." Owen pulled her close, his heart full to bursting with contentment and gratitude. "And you gave me the same. You gave me everything I ever wanted without even knowing I wanted it. You made me believe in love, Sarah. The real kind, the kind that lasts and grows and makes everything else worthwhile." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the mountains, their children's laughter drifting on the evening breeze. The years ahead would bring challenges and joys, hardships and triumphs, but they would face all of it together, as partners, as lovers, as best friends. The ranch continued to prosper over the years. By 1890, the Fairchild spread was known throughout Colorado and beyond. They had expanded their land holdings, acquired more cattle and horses, and built a reputation for honest dealing and quality stock. Thomas, at 12, was already showing signs of the horseman he would become, with Owen's patience and Sarah's intelligence. Rebecca, at 10, was fierce and independent, organizing her younger brother and the ranch children like a general commanding troops. Daniel, at 8, was the gentle soul of the family, always bringing home injured animals to heal and finding beauty in small things. In 1891, Sarah gave birth to their 4th and final child, another daughter they named Grace. She came as a surprise, given that Sarah was now 39 and had assumed her childbearing years were behind her, but she was welcomed with joy by the whole family. 4 children, Sarah marveled, holding baby Grace while surrounded by her other children. 4 beautiful, free, healthy children who will never know what it is like to be anything but loved and valued. Owen, now 42, looked at his family with undisguised pride and love. 5, if you count me, because I was not really living until I met you. Their children groaned good-naturedly at their father's sentimentality, but Sarah's eyes filled with happy tears. Even after all these years, Owen could still make her feel cherished with just a few words. The ranch became a gathering place for the community, with the Fairchilds known for their hospitality and generosity. Sarah opened their home to women who needed help, offering work and sanctuary to those fleeing difficult situations. She never forgot what it felt like to be trapped and helpless, and she made it her mission to help others find their own freedom. Owen supported her completely in this, using his influence and resources to assist women in getting divorces, finding work, or simply starting over. Together, they became advocates for changing laws around marriage and property rights, writing letters to territorial legislators and supporting candidates who believed women deserved legal equality. "You are making a difference," James Callahan told them one evening in 1893. He was in his 70s now, retired and content to let the Fairchilds run the expanded ranch operation. "Not just with the ranch, but with people's lives. You are changing things for the better." "We are just doing what is right," Sarah said, "what someone did for us." "No," James corrected gently. "You are doing far more than that. You are building a legacy of kindness and justice. Your children will carry that forward and their children after them. That is worth more than all the land and cattle in Colorado." As the 19th century drew to a close, the Fairchilds watched their children grow into remarkable young adults. Thomas went off to college in Denver to study agriculture and business, with plans to return and modernize the ranch operations. Rebecca shocked everyone by announcing her intention to become a lawyer, determined to help women in situations like her mother's had been. "You do know that women cannot practice law in most places, right?" Owen asked, torn between admiration and concern. Rebecca lifted her chin stubbornly. "Then I will practice where they can, or I will be the first where they cannot. Mother taught me that the impossible is just the difficult happening slowly." Sarah hugged her fierce daughter, recognizing her own fighting spirit reflected back at her. "You will be magnificent. And your father and I will support you every step of the way." Daniel stayed on the ranch, having discovered a gift for training horses that exceeded even his father's considerable skills. He was patient and intuitive, able to gentle even the most difficult animals, and people came from hundreds of miles around to have him work with their horses. Grace, growing up adored by her older siblings, was showing signs of becoming a healer, fascinated by medicine and always tending to anyone who was sick or hurt. Sarah encouraged this interest, teaching her daughter to read medical texts and learn from the local doctor. In the summer of 1899, the entire Fairchild clan gathered at the ranch to celebrate Owen and Sarah's 22nd wedding anniversary. Children and grandchildren Thomas had married and given them their first grandson, filled the expanded ranch house with noise and laughter. After dinner, Owen and Sarah slipped away from the celebration, walking hand in hand to their favorite spot on a ridge overlooking the valley. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. 22 years, Sarah said softly. "Though it feels like we have lived several lifetimes in that time." "The best lifetimes," Owen said. "I would not change a single moment, even the hard ones. They all led us here." "Do you ever wonder what happened to Morgan, to my uncle?" "Occasionally, but they have no power over us anymore. They are just shadows from a past we have long since overcome." Sarah squeezed his hand. "I used to have nightmares about them finding me, taking me back, but I have not had one of those dreams in years. You know why?" "Why?" "Because even in my sleep, I know you are beside me. I know that you meant what you said that first night. Nobody owns me while you are standing here, and you have been standing here by my side every single day since." Owen turned to her, cupping her face in his hands. Time had added lines to both their faces, threads of silver to their hair, but when he looked at Sarah, he still saw the brave woman who had stumbled into his campfire and changed his life forever. "I will stand beside you until my last breath," he promised. "And if there is anything beyond that, I will find a way to stand beside you there too. You are my heart, Sarah, my home, my everything." They kissed as the sun set behind them, two people who had found each other in the darkest moment and built a life full of light. The new century brought changes to Colorado and the West. The frontier was closing, towns were growing into cities, and the wild country they had known was becoming tamed. But on the Fairchild Ranch, life continued its steady rhythm, rooted in family, hard work, and love. By 1905, Owen was 56 and Sarah was 53. They had 7 grandchildren, with more on the way. The ranch had grown into one of the most successful operations in the state, but more importantly, it had become a symbol of hope and second chances. Sarah's work helping women in difficult situations had grown into a formal organization, funded by the ranch profits and run by Rebecca, who had indeed become one of Colorado's first female lawyers. She used her position to fight for women's rights, representing women in divorce cases and custody battles, often for free. Thomas ran the ranch alongside Owen, implementing modern techniques while maintaining the quality and integrity that had made the Fairchild name respected throughout the West. Daniel's horse training operation had become legendary, and Grace was studying medicine in Denver, determined to return to rural Colorado to provide care to women and children who often went without. On a cool October evening in 1905, Owen and Sarah sat together on their porch, wrapped in blankets against the mountain chill. They were older now, slower, but the love between them had only deepened with time. "I received a letter today," Sarah said quietly, "from a lawyer in Tucson. My uncle died last month." Owen looked at her carefully. "How do you feel about that?" "I do not know. Sad, maybe, for the man he could have been. Grateful that he cannot hurt anyone else. Mostly just distant, like it happened to someone else in another life. In many ways it did." "You are not that frightened girl anymore." "No, I am not. I am Sarah Fairchild, wife of Owen, mother of 4, grandmother of 7, and I am free. That girl from Tucson seems like a story I once heard, not someone I was. But you carry her strength with you. You survived that, and look what you built from it. Look at the lives you have changed, the good you have done in this world." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "We built it, Owen. Every bit of it was us together. I could not have done any of it without you. That works both ways. You gave my life meaning and purpose. You made me better than I ever would have been on my own." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The sounds of the ranch drifted to them: horses in the corral, the distant lowing of cattle, someone laughing in the bunkhouse. "Owen," Sarah said softly. "Yes, love. Thank you for cutting those ropes. Thank you for seeing me as a person worth saving. Thank you for loving me." Owen kissed the top of her head, his heart as full as it had been that first night when he had looked into her frightened eyes and made a promise he had spent every day since keeping. "Thank you for stumbling into my campfire. Thank you for being brave enough to accept help. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me." He tightened his arm around her. "Nobody owns you, Sarah Fairchild, not even me, but you own my heart completely and forever." "And you own mine," she whispered back. "Freely given, joyfully kept." They sat together as the night deepened around them. Two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful and lasting. Their story would be told to their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, passed down as a testament to courage, love, and the unbreakable human spirit. The years continued to unfold with their particular mixture of joy and challenge. Owen and Sarah grew older gracefully, remaining active in the ranch and community well into their 60s. They were beloved figures, known for their kindness, wisdom, and the obvious love that still bound them together after more than 3 decades of marriage. In 1912, Rebecca won a landmark case that established new protections for women in forced marriages, citing her own mother's story as inspiration. The law became known as the Norton-Fairchild Act, and it spread to other states over the following years, helping countless women escape situations similar to what Sarah had endured. When Sarah learned the act was to be named after her, she wept in Owen's arms. "I wish I could go back and tell that terrified girl running through the desert that her suffering would mean something," she said. That she would not only survive but help others survive too. I think she knew, Owen said gently. I think that is why she kept running, why she did not give up even when it seemed hopeless. She believed she deserved better, and that belief saved her. Saved us. Thomas and Daniel had taken over full operation of the ranch by 1915, allowing Owen and Sarah to step back into advisory roles. They spent their days riding together through the mountains they loved, tending Sarah's extensive gardens, and spoiling their ever-growing collection of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Grace had returned from Denver as a doctor and opened a practice serving rural communities, often accepting payment in goods or services from families who could not afford cash. She had her mother's compassion and her father's integrity, and she too became a pillar of the community. In the spring of 1918, Owen fell ill with pneumonia. At 69, he had lived a hard life, and the illness hit him harder than it might have in his younger years. Sarah barely left his bedside during his recovery, nursing him with fierce determination. "You are not allowed to die," she told him one night when his fever was particularly high. "Do you hear me, Owen Fairchild? We have a deal. You stand beside me until the very end, and I do not think this is the end yet." Owen, even in his delirium, managed a weak smile. "Yes, madam. Would not dream of breaking a promise to you." He recovered, though it took months to regain his full strength. The experience shook them both, a reminder that their time together, however beautiful, was finite. On their 40th anniversary in 1917, their children threw them a party that drew people from all over Colorado. The ranch house and grounds overflowed with friends, family, and people whose lives had been touched by the Fairchilds' generosity and kindness. As Owen and Sarah stood together surrounded by everyone they loved, Rebecca raised a glass. "To my parents," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Who taught us that love is not about ownership but partnership, that freedom is worth fighting for, that second chances are real and beautiful lives can be built from the darkest moments. Mother, Father, you gave us the greatest gift parents can give. You showed us what true love looks like. May we all be so blessed." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Owen and Sarah, both with tears streaming down their faces, held each other close. 40 years, Owen murmured into Sarah's hair. 40 years since I cut those ropes and you trusted me enough to accept help. Best decision I ever made. Best thing that ever happened to me, Sarah replied. You and this life we built together. They danced together that evening, moving slowly to a waltz played by Thomas on his fiddle. Everyone else cleared the floor to watch, witnessing a love that had endured through decades and difficulties, growing stronger with each passing year. As the celebration wound down and guests began departing, Owen and Sarah found themselves once again on their porch, the place where they had spent countless evenings over the years. "You think we will get 40 more?" Sarah asked, though she knew the answer. They were both in their 60s now, slowing down despite their best efforts. "Maybe not 40, Owen said honestly, "but however many we get, I will treasure every single day. Every moment with you is a gift, Sarah. I have never taken that for granted. I know. I have felt treasured every day of our marriage. You kept your promise, Owen. Nobody owned me while you were standing beside me. But more than that, you helped me own myself. You gave me back my freedom and my choice, and I chose you. I would choose you again every single time. And I would choose you, forever and always." The years that followed were quieter but no less precious. Owen and Sarah entered their 70s with grace and gratitude, their days filled with family and simple pleasures. They took daily walks together, weather permitting, holding hands like newlyweds. They read to each other in the evenings, shared meals with their ever-expanding family, and never missed an opportunity to tell each other, "I love you." In 1924, they celebrated their 47th anniversary surrounded by 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. Owen was 75 and Sarah was 72, both still sharp-minded and deeply in love. "You know what I have been thinking about?" Sarah asked as they prepared for bed that night. "What is that?" "That first night when you cut the ropes from my wrists. I was so scared and desperate, and you were this stranger with a knife. But somehow I knew. Even in that moment, some part of me recognized you as the person who would change everything." Owen smiled, helping her into bed before climbing in beside her. "I knew too. The moment I saw you, something in my chest just clicked into place. Like I had been waiting for you my whole life without knowing it. Fate," Sarah said softly, "or providence, or just blind luck. Whatever it was, I am grateful for it every single day." "Me too, love, me too." They fell asleep as they had for nearly 5 decades, wrapped in each other's arms, 2 hearts beating in synchrony. Owen passed away peacefully in his sleep in the summer of 1926, just 3 months after their 49th anniversary. He was 77 years old and died as he had lived his final decades with Sarah beside him, their hands entwined. The funeral drew hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. Ranchers and businessmen, lawyers and doctors, women he and Sarah had helped over the years, and children and grandchildren who adored him. They spoke of his integrity, his kindness, his skill with horses, and most of all, his devotion to his wife and family. Sarah, though heartbroken, stood strong through the service. She knew Owen would not want her to fall apart. He would want her to keep living, to keep making a difference, to keep being the remarkable woman he had always seen in her. "He saved my life," she told the gathered mourners. "Not just that first night when he cut the ropes from my wrists, but every day after. He showed me what love could be, what marriage should be, what freedom truly meant. And now, even though he is gone, I am still free, still strong, because he spent 49 years making sure I knew my own worth. That is the gift he gave me, and it is one I will carry until my last breath." Sarah lived for another 8 years after Owen's death, passing away peacefully in 1934 at the age of 82. She remained active in her advocacy work almost until the end, mentoring Rebecca and other women lawyers, funding shelters for women escaping abusive situations, and telling her story to anyone who would listen. On her deathbed, surrounded by her children, she smiled and reached out as if grasping someone's hand. "Owen," she whispered, "I knew you would be here. I knew you would come stand beside me one more time." Grace, holding her mother's other hand, felt her squeeze once gently, and then Sarah Fairchild was gone, reunited at last with the man who had loved her with his whole heart for nearly 50 years. They were buried side by side on the ranch they had built together, overlooking the valley they had loved. Their graves became a site of pilgrimage for people seeking inspiration, and their story was told and retold across generations. The ranch remained in the Fairchild family, passed down through Thomas's line, and continuing to operate according to the principles Owen and Sarah had established. The house, expanded and renovated many times, remained a gathering place for family and a sanctuary for those in need. Rebecca's legal work inspired new generations of women lawyers, and the Norton-Fairchild Act continued to protect vulnerable women well into the 20th century. Daniel's horse training methods became the standard across the West, and Grace's medical practice evolved into a clinic that served rural Colorado for decades. But perhaps their greatest legacy was the love story itself. Owen and Sarah Fairchild had taken a moment of terror and desperation, and transformed it into a lifetime of joy, partnership, and purpose. They had proven that love could heal even the deepest wounds, that second chances were real, and that freedom, once won, could blossom into something beautiful beyond imagination. Their great-great-grandchildren still told the story of the cowboy who cut the ropes from a desperate woman's wrists and promised her that nobody owned her while he was standing there. How that simple act of courage and compassion had sparked a love that lasted a lifetime and touched countless other lives in turn. It was a reminder that we all have the power to change someone's world, to stand up for what is right, to offer help to those who need it. That love, real love, is built on freedom and choice and mutual respect. That happy endings are possible, even from the darkest beginnings. And somewhere in the mountains of Colorado, two souls who had found each other against all odds were together again. Their love story complete, but never forgotten, inspiring generation after generation to believe in the transformative power of courage, kindness, and true love freely given and joyfully received.